spark, then they shape. And the fruit that fell far was the ripeness.
Alright. Here we go. Alright, what's up everyone? Welcome to Akuma Studies, and today we're discussing the history of Casio. Alright, people, this video is going to be quite long because there's a lot of information on this rich company. So, without further ado, let's get started. So, April 1946, Casio Sesai Kujo, founded in Mitaka, Tokyo. The late Casio Tadao, founder of Casio Computer Co., was born in Kuretamura, now Nankoku City, in Kochi Prefecture, Japan, in 1917. In 1923, after the Great Kanto earthquake, the whole Casio family moved to Tokyo at the invitation of an uncle working there. After graduating from high school, Tadao began working as an apprentice to a lathe operator. The factory owner recognized Tadao's skill and encouraged him to begin studies at Waseda Koshu Gakko while still working at the factory. He gained experience in a variety of jobs, making pots, pans, and bicycle generator lamps, and soon earned a reputation for himself and received subcontracts to process parts. In 1946, Tadao set up his business called Casio Sesakujo in Mitaka, Tokyo. So, you can start to see the foundations of their company being made. It's kind of interesting. You start out just moving from your hometown as what is basically like an environmental refugee. Uncle's working at a factory, you join, and you find out you have a knack for creating things. It kind of reminds me of some people in my family. So, December 1954, the prototype of an all-electric compact calculator is completed. Casio Sesakujo was a small subcontract factory that made microscope parts and gears. Tadao had three younger brothers, Toshio, Kazuo, and Yukio. Toshio initially worked at the Tokyo office of the Ministry of Communications as a technician, building and equipping telegraph and telephone facilities. However, when Toshio saw how Tadao was toiling every day at his job, he began to wonder if he could come up with something to help his brother with his career. As a child, the thoughtful Toshio had admired Edison and told his family that he wanted to become an inventor when he grew up. With his extensive electrical knowledge, Toshio had already achieved results in system improvement at his workplace. However, he decided to quit his job and work at Casio Sekakujo in order to test his abilities for innovation. Interesting. Utilizing his natural inventiveness, Toshio tried out several new ideas. One of these was the Yobiwa finger ring pipe. At that time in post-war Japan, commodities were in short supply, and people smoked their cigarettes down to the very nub. For this reason, Toshio came up with a ring-mounted cigarette holder so that he could also smoke while doing his work. Funny. Tadao produced it on a lathe, and their father, Shigeru, went out to market it. Other orders gradually began to pour in, and Yobiwa pipe became a hit product soon after it was produced. The profits from this invention would later go towards capital for a new development of a calculator. Really interesting. It's a lot of, looking at these early founders of wristwatch companies, and a lot of these companies that are very, very well known today, they all start out the same. It's one or two people, maybe a handful of people who are either really, really good businessmen or more often than not, very, very, very good creators. So whether they're mechanical engineer, whether they're watchmakers, and in this case, electrical engineers. But here's the thing. I don't want to say electrical engineers because that kind of gives them a little bit of a disservice. These people were good at just making things, and I find that exceptionally I find it inspiring, really. Looking for a new product to follow the Yobiwa pipe, the Casio brothers laid eyes on a foreign-made electric calculators at the first business show held in Ginza, Tokyo in 1949. Most calculators at the time used mechanical gears, and there were none that employed electrical circuits like today's devices. The main type of calculator used in Japan at the time was a hand-operated calculator, which employed gears and a hand crank. Although electric calculators using a small motor to turn gears had already appeared overseas, they could not be manufactured in Japan, as a high level of technical expertise and special quality materials were needed in order to process the parts. Although the electrical calculator was faster than the hand-operated model, it was still slower than today's calculators. And since the gears turned at a high speed, it made a shrill noise. With his electrical knowledge, Toshio thought he could resolve a lot of problems by using all electrical circuits instead of metal parts, and decided to try to make his own calculator. Toshio used a type of electromagnet called a solenoid, and began development of an electric calculator without gears. Tadao and Toshio soon found themselves working all day on subcontracting work to make a living, and then spending their evening hours absorbed in developing the calculator. They showed the prototype to people and made improvements after getting feedback. In this way, worked out the various problems and bugs in the invention. After making 10 or more prototypes, they completed Japan's first electric calculator in 1949. The following year, the Casio brothers proudly took their finished product to the Bunshodo Corporation, the trading company handling office supplies, including calculators. Unfortunately, the Bunshodo representative told them that their calculator was out of date because it could not do continuing multiplication, wherein a multiplication product could subsequently be multiplied by another number. Tadao and Toshio once again began spending their days working out the problems with the next prototypes. About that time, both younger brothers Kazuo and Yukio also quit their jobs and began working at Casio Sasakujo. Toshio came up with the ideas. Yukio, who had been a mechanical engineering student at university, drew the plans, and Tadao and Kazuo did the production. Wow. That's really, really, really cool. Just a completely in-house, family-made business. That's kind of what I aspire to have. In 1956, 6 years after the start of development, they were close to completing a calculator with a continuing multiplication function, and all they had to do left was figure out how to mass produce it. At this point, Toshio suddenly stated that he wanted to completely redesign the calculator. The Solenoid Design design with its complicated mechanical structure meant potential difficulties for mass production. Oh, I've ran into those problems before, and I've known people who have really, really ran into those problems. Toshio wanted to eliminate the solenoid design and use relays like those employed in telephone exchange equipment for those days, in order to make a completely electrical calculator. Although computers using relays had already appeared by the late 1950s, they were so large that they required a whole room to themselves, complete with air purification systems. The disadvantage of relays was that they were easily affected by fine particles and dust. In order to solve this problem, special ingenuity was needed to bring electronic calculation to regular offices. First, the four Casio brothers worked to reduce the number of relays from the several thousand, sometimes over 10,000 used in the giant computers of the day, to just 341. That's actually very impressive, through improvements in the circuit design. They also began an original type of relay that was hardly affected by dust. That is pretty damn cool. The greatest feature of the four brothers' new invention was the adoption of a 10-key format. The calculators at the time used a full keypad with just numerals for 0 to 9 for all digit places. The newly developed relay-type calculator only used 10 number keys, just like the pocket calculators today. A unique design was adopted for the display. Calculators at that time had 3 display windows when calculating 100 plus 200 equals 300. The numerals 100, 200, and 300 were all displayed at the same time. However, the relay calculators and the numbers disappeared after the text was entered, just like new calculators, and the final answer appeared at the end. Today this seems like common sense, but at the time it was a revolutionary new idea, and it required a lot of hard work to get it accepted. With the innovations, however, compact calculators were realized and the office calculator was born. So as you can see, Casio didn't enter the game they entered the game, I think, in a very unique way. They entered the game as innovators, as creators, and as entrepreneurs, and that's a great story of the early beginnings of Casio. But here we go. We're gonna just go run through the earlier years of Casio, and then we'll move on to the 70s. So, in 1957, marketing for the world's first compact all-electric calculator, the Casio 14A, begins, and Casio Computer Co. is established. In the 1960s, the Tokyo factory completed in Yamato Machi, they completed their factory. In May, Tadao Casio becomes company president. In 1962, in March, the sales department was established with a dual sales system employing dealer and direct sales. Cool. In 1965, in June, exclusive deal with Uchida Yoko discontinued. Casio takes over 50 sales outlets. Interesting. So they start moving into their, monopolizing their dealers, making in-house manufacturing. They're basically becoming what's the word for it? An in-house electronics company. In September, the release of the 001, an electronic desktop calculator with onboard memory. In 1966, the head office is moved to Yamato Machi, Tokyo. In September, electronic desktop calculators exported overseas for the first time. In March, the European office is opened in Switzerland. In September 1967, Casio enters the US and Canadian markets. In October, the release of the world's first programmable desktop calculator with program, the AL1000 series. And in 1969, the Kofu factory is completed in Tamaho Mura Nakakomo Nakakoma Gun Yamagashi. Wow. And here we are, moving on to the next little generation of time, the 70s. Alright, here we go. In 1970, May, overseas company Casio Incorporated is established in New York. In September, Casio stock is listed on the second section of the Tokyo Stock Exchange. So there we go, it goes public. In 1971, in April, the world's first inkjet printer is unveiled. In 1972, the release of the Casio Mini, the world's first personal calculator. That's really cool. Casio stock authorized for transfer to the first section of the Tokyo Stock Exchange, so it was successful when it went public. Since September, Casio stock listed in the first section of the Osaka Stock Exchange. In October 1972, overseas sales company Casio Computer Co. in Deutschland established in Hamburg, Germany. In 1973, the Hachioji factory begins operations. In September 1973, the Casio stock is listed on the Amsterdam Stock Exchange. 1974, the head office is moved to Shinjuku, Tokyo, and the release of the personal scientific calculator, the FX10. In October, the release of the Casiotron electronic wristwatch. Man, here we go, man. You're starting to see the beginnings of the wristwatch, and we'll go in more in depth about this Casiotron. After the success of the Casio Mini, Casio was secure. After the success of the Casio Mini, Casio was secure in its position at the top of the electronic calculator industry. In order to strengthen its earnings base, the company decided to diversify its business by producing timepieces. At first glance, electronic calculators and timepieces seem to be completely different product categories, but at that time, timepieces were undergoing a technological revolution from mechanical to quartz mechanisms. A type of quartz timepiece, digital chronometers, consist of a counter that measures pulses from a crystal oscillator. In other words, a simple adding machine that shows a running calculation of each second. This was a product that would allow Casio to maximize the LSI technology it had developed for electronic calculators. Considering this, it was only natural for Casio to branch out into the business of timepieces. That makes sense, actually. It really does. So they were working on calculators, used that same technology, transferred that over to wristwatches, because at the fundamental core, they're really just doing the same thing. And I gotta say, the Casiotron looks pretty cool. However, the Japanese clock and the watch industry in the mid-1970s was closely integrated from the production to sales levels, making it very difficult for new manufacturers to enter the market. Casio made intensive efforts to overcome this barrier, and in October 1974 it released a computerized watch, the Casiotron. This watch not only showed the hours, minutes, and seconds, but also had a unique function that could automatically determine the number of days in a month. Very cool. So it had a change display, hours, minutes, 10 seconds, AM, PM, month, date, and day of the week, automatic calendar. The display was an Fe liquid crystal display. The main components were a crystal oscillator and the CMOS LSI, which is the technology, basically the movement, I would say. And the price was 58,000 to 65,000 yen. Casio Electronics Limited opens in London in 1975. In 1976, the establishment of the Casio Lease Co. in Shinjuku, Tokyo. Blah 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 blah. In July, the release of the electronic cash register. In July, December, release of the first combination clock calculator. Then Kudo CQ1. In 1978, the release of the first card-sized calculator, the Casio Mini LC78, thickness 3.9 millimeters. Very cool. In February, Casio Taiwan Limited is established in Taiwan. In September, release of the first watch equipped with the Casio-produced LCD 31CS10B. Wonder what that is. Let's go look it up. Casio LCD. No more further information, but let's go to images, see what we can see. Well, it doesn't have much about the actual movement, but I think it's the same. No, this was the second. I think maybe it was put in the second generation of Casiotrons, but either way, pretty cool. In 1979, Casio stock is listed on the Frankfurt Stock Exchange. So bam, they're just going international with their stock. In July, the Hamura Research and Development Center constructed in Hamuramachi in Tokyo. Along with the growth of the company, the Tokyo Product Control and Technical Center in Higashi Yamato City became too small. And in December 1978, the construction of a new research center was begun in Hamuramachi. The Hamura Research and Development Center was completed in July of the following year and currently employs to this day, at this current time, 1,500 people as Casio Central Research and Development Institute. Very cool. So basically, they just beefed up the R&D section. Also in July that year, 1979, the release of the Casio Language Office Computer. In October, more Casio subsidiaries being created. And here we move on to the 80s. 1980, release of the Casio Tone 201 electronic keyboard. In 1981, the automated calculator production line goes into operation at the Kofu plant. September, the release of the solar-powered calculator, the SL801. In October, the release of the first electronic dictionary, the TR2000. In November 1981, the first Casio World Open Golf Tournament held. Starting to look like Seiko, sponsoring a bunch of sports events. In 1982, in June, the Casio Science Promotion Foundation is established. November, the release of the analog watch combination type AQ500. Let's look for the Casio AQ500. Cool. Honestly, I think this watch is pretty damn ugly. But actually no, I take that back. It's actually a pretty sick watch. Just the version I was looking at was pretty ugly. If you go look it up, guys, I'll have a picture up definitely. But it's a pretty clean dress watch, I gotta say. Shoot, maybe I'll get one of these if I can find one on eBay. In 1983, the release of the G-Shock DW5000C as the first shock-resistant watch. Boom, there we go. The release of the G-Shock. In 1983, Casio released a new watch that overturned the thinking of the watch and clock industry. Amidst the trend towards thinner and lighter watches, the novel, rugged design of G-Shock was based on the unique concept of a watch that could be dropped from the top of a building and still not break. When this was first introduced, the G-Shock was only popular in certain markets, such as the US, due to its unique appearance. Over 10 years later, fashion trends changed, and after consumers took a fresh look at its functions and designs, it became an instant hit worldwide. G-Shock established a new category of the shock-resistant watch, and became Casio's signature watch. Boom. The DW5000. Some calculators released. I mean, here we go. I mean, we're gonna keep on going through some of the releases that they did. For example, the Digital Diary, the PF3000, release of the TV10, a pocket-sized LCD TV, release of the Film Card SL800 credit card-sized calculator. In 1994, the release of the Databank Telephone Storage Number Wristwatch. There we go. Established, let's take a look at that. After entering business of timepieces in 1974, Casio released watches with various advanced features, including the calculator function C80 released in 1980, and the dictionary function T1500 walking dictionary released in 1982. The company wanted to see wristwatch evolve from a simple device for telling time to an information device on the wrist. As part of this progress, the Databank Telemeno 10 CD40 released in 1984 had a databank function that could save and recall 10 groups of 16 letters or numerals, thereby eliminating the need to carry a personal phone number organizer. This watch further advanced the concept of an information device on the wrist, became a major hit product, selling a record total number of 6 million units in 5 years after its release. After that, Casio put out a whole series of databank watches featuring the Japanese kana display, timetable, auto dial, and other functions. And once again, that was the Casio CD40 or the CD80. That's so cool. In August 1984, the release of the Databank watch that can recognize handwritten words. Pretty cool. Pretty dang cool, man. And there we go. We're going to keep on going a little bit. Release of the super thin digital watch, the Pila. Really, really, really cool. Based on the novel idea of making a watch plastic and wristband all in one piece, the PELA FS10 was realized through the development of revolutionary new hybrid molding technology, applying plastic molding and microelectronics expertise. Only 3.9 millimeters thick and 12 grams, the super thin, lightweight Pila won immediate popularity and became the watch industry's first million-selling model. Wow, and I've never even heard of this watch, man. The Pila, released in 1985. I think, honestly, this is starting to make me kind of think, what kind of vintage Casio can I get? What vintage Casio can I look at? I was always wondered how DGV found that Skywalker watch, and it could just be because he grew up with it as a kid. Maybe he had a friend who had one, or I don't know, whatever. But going through this little section about Casio, I'm really learning a lot about a lot of their vintage watches, and yeah, we'll see. We'll see how much these go for. A lot more electronic stuff. First liquid shutter printer, pocket-sized LCD TV, release of a personal Japanese word processor. They opened up offices in Beijing in 1886. The release of a new calculator with text processing capability. Release of the sample tone, an electronic musical instrument with a sampling function. So basically a faux MPC. Release of a 32-bit super office computer with Unix, so they started entering the computer game. Obviously, it didn't work out for them. In 1987, they established an Ltd limited company in Hong Kong. Casio, more stuff, more subsidiaries being created, more electronics being created. Where are the wristwatches? Where are the wristwatches? Here we go. In 1989, the BM 100WJ digital watch with weather prediction sensors released. Wow, that's just insane. Generally speaking, when the atmospheric air pressure increases, the weather improves, and when it decreases, the weather deteriorates. Okay. The BM 100WJ was a digital watch with weather prediction function based on this principle. The watch had an internal semiconductor barometer sensor that measured the air pressure every 3 hours and showed the data on the bar graph display. When the bar on the right hand side went up, it meant the weather would improve, and when it went down, the weather would get worse. The air pressure data could also be used to tell the wearer his or her approximate altitude or underwater depth. These revolutionary new functions made the BM100WJ a major hit product. Casio went on to create a whole line of sensor watches with various functions. So this is one of the first barometer wristwatches, released in February 1989, the BM100WJ. Wow, that's cool. Here we go to 1990. Release of the wristwatch type blood pressure monitor. Cool. Some more subsidiaries being established. More random electronics being made. Man, Casio is just pumping out these products like crazy. I mean, there's some. I think the ones that they're listing here were the ones that were successful, but I mean, I'm sure they released a lot that failed also. In December, the Baby G-Shock resistant watch for women is released. I have actually had a few of these, not for me, but for my little sister. These are pretty cool wristwatches. The one that my sister had was a dolphin, had a little dolphin on it, on the display. But let's continue. The G-Shock shock-resistant wristwatch was first released in 1983 and had now gained popularity overseas. This trend was re-imported into Japan, and the G-Shock became a major hit with ongoing supply shortages. Being pushed by the popularity of G-Shock, other watch companies came out with their own digital watches in a solid and tough looking style, redefining a product that had until then been only driven by functionality. With the trend towards the tough, shock-resistant look, women also began to wear large wristwatches. In 1994, Casio came out with a new line of G-Shock watches just for women called the Baby G series. The first item of the series, the DW520, not only had G-Shock shock-resistant, but was also a cute lady-sized digital watch featuring pop colors and surfing design motifs that were popular with teen girls at the time. The subsequent Baby Gs were developed with different functions and themes, and to this day, more and more women enjoy the various Baby G styles. More subsidiaries being released. The QV10 digital camera with LCD monitor was released in 1995. They released the PH100 series mobile phone. That's crazy. Release of the FKT100L radio-controlled watch. Ooh, interesting. Radio-controlled timepieces always showed the correct time by receiving long-wave radio frequencies, transmitting standard time information. In 1995, Casio developed and delivered its first radio-controlled timepiece, the FKT100L combination watch, to the German market in June of the following year. Casio released the DQD10 clock model in Japan. In 1996, when the DQD10 was released, the standard radio signals being transmitted in Japan were test broadcast. However, the product gained the spotlight as a clock that never needed to be reset. Then, on June 10, 1999, official broadcasting started and Casio began full-scale development of various radio-controlled timepiece models. In October 2001, another standard radio transmitter began broadcasting, and time signals could then be received with reliability anywhere in Japan, and radio-controlled timepieces were widely adopted. In 1999, in the U.S., standard radio signal outputs were improved and transmission was extended throughout the country. Starting in July 2001, Casio began marketing radio-controlled timepieces in the U.S. as well. The Casiopedia, the names, handheld PC released in North America, more subsidiaries being created, cameras being released, PCs being released, mini laptops being made, 1998, my birth year, 1999, more Casiopedias, more subsidiaries being created, and in June, the Satellite Navi, the world's first GPS watch, released. Wow, that thing looks crazy cool. The actual product was released in June of that same year under the nickname Satellite Navi as the top model of the outdoor watch series Pro Trek. Interesting. The watch was acclaimed for its advanced feature allowing the wearer to easily determine directions and distances in relation to his or her location or destination, which is especially useful for outdoors activities such as mountain climbing and fishing, where lightweight compact devices are needed. And this thing looks absolutely insane. This is one of those things that I feel like, it's 1999, maybe the United States has like CIA operatives in like Afghanistan or something. I could actually see them wearing that wristwatch. It's pretty cool. And here we go, we're almost to the modern era, the 2000s. In 2000, the C303CA water and shock resistant cellular phone is released. They released an MP3 player. They developed an algorithm for fingerprints. The WQV1 wrist camera, a wristwatch-style digital camera, is released. Wow, the early 2000s, man. The wrist camera was the world's first wristwatch digital camera, measuring 52 by 40 by 16 millimeters and with a weight of 32 grams. It is a super small and lightweight device that can be easily worn on the wrist, and it enables the wearer to always be ready for any photo opportunity. And to check the resulting pictures on the display. Oh my god. The image data can also be transmitted to other wrist cameras or PC, based on the concept of information devices for the wrist that go beyond telling time. Oh wow, great. The product displays a culmination of Casio's technology development. I mean, it's probably not an easy thing to make. At the same time though, I mean, as we know, wristwatch cameras never really caught on. In 2001, the WVA300 solar power radio controlled watch is released. 2002, Casio becomes the first to release a cellular phone with a built-in digital camera. That actually took on very, 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 very well. And in November, the ultimate G-Shock watch released. This is actually a classic looking at G-Shock. The G-Shock was born out of the idea, blah 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 blah, while inheriting the superior shock resistance and design that conveys toughness. The ultimate G-Shock, the G, features a tough solar power system that is powered by its solar cell. The G has made it possible to keep accurate time due to its radio-controlled system, which receives standard time radio signals to maintain its accuracy. So cool. Tough Solar was already made by 2002. And, fingerprint verification, that's kind of interesting. I wonder if Casio still works on stuff like that today. The Charter of Creativity for Casio is established, more subsidiaries being released, expansions of research centers, entry into different markets. The Casio is just growing. 2004, more random stuff is being released. Joints, companies are being established, subsidiaries being made. More of the same, I would say, from the past. Release of the Oceanus 5 motor chronograph. What is that? The Oceanus 5 motor chronograph. Let's go look at some pics. Wow. And this is the birth of those big fat Casio chronographs, the Oceanus. Wow, that's a pretty damn complicated wristwatch. Cool. 2006, more random stuff being released. Digital cameras. Casio España begins. More Oceanus wristwatches being made in 2007. I wonder if these are still in manufacturing. More random electronics being made. Release of the G-Shock Riseman as the world's first six multi-band radio-controlled watch. Cool. 2008. Here we go. In July, Casio develops the new Tough movement, boasting slimness and high performance for its radio-controlled watch. Subsidiaries being opened in Russia. 2009, in Brazil, Italia. Casio Human Systems Limited is established. I wonder if that has to do with their biometrics. Release of the thinnest shock-resistant digital camera. And here we go. In December 2009, shock-resistant G-Shock watches achieve a total of over 15 million units shipped worldwide. That's no small feat. 50 million, that's... At least in the United States, that's 1 in every 6 people. If we just counting it. If all of that was in the United States. But, I mean, if you consider the Casio wristwatches and you consider G-Shock, I mean, what? Maybe 1 in every 100 people in the world has had a G-Shock or a Casio-related product. I mean, if you're talking Casio-related product, I mean, what? Maybe 1 in every 50 people in the world has had one or something crazy. 2010, more random stuff about cameras, digital cameras. 2011, more business stuff. 2012, the release of the G-Shock GB 690, let me read that again. In 2012, release of the G-Shock GB 6900, which can link up with the wearer's smartphone using Bluetooth. So here we go. I mean, it's so interesting. You can really see the kind of how technology changes, how consumer patterns change, and how like this company is like, changing their products to match up with that. It's so interesting how this all happens, because 10 years ago they're making camera wristwatches, and now they're making watches that can link up with smartphones with Bluetooth. Launch of Casio Singaje, blah blah blah. Release of Casio Art digital printing with 3D effects. Release of in 2014, release of the G-Shock GPW 1000 equipped with GPS and standard time signal reception. 2015, Kazuhiro Casio is appointed president of Casio, so it looks to me that it's still run by the family. And here we go. 2016, release of the Smart Outdoor Watch, a wrist device running for the Android Wear system. So, I mean, Casio, as you can see today, is still doing thing. And in 2017, May, release of the G-Shock GPW 2000, the world's first watch equipped with a 3-way time sync system. So here we go, man. They're going to keep on adding to this. And all I can say is that Casio is a company that honestly has heavily advanced technology. From their foundings to their modern day things. I mean, sometimes they're on the forefront, sometimes they're not, but either way, Casio is 100% a company that has affected the world economy, has affected huge swaths of the world's population with their cheap, useful, and effective products. Casio, I owe one to you, and that's why I have one of you in my collection, and I gave one of you off to Minovia. So, everyone, I just want to thank you for watching the video. Please tell me, what kind of Casios have you had? Calculators, cameras, wristwatches, whatever kind of Casio products you've had, let me know in the comments below. If you have any information or any wristwatches you'd like me to check out that are vintage Casio, I would 100% love it if you could just leave the model number down below, your experiences with the wristwatch, what you think about it. Once again, everyone, I really want to thank you for watching this video. Thank you very, very much for watching, and Akuma out.